The Rafale, one of the highest performing fighter aircraft in the world. Now the spearhead of the French Air Force, it has replaced the old Mirage. It can be loaded with the most sophisticated weapons. It hits targets with awesome accuracy. Its prowess in combat is exceptional. It has been deployed in Libya, Mali, Iraq, and Syria. The Rafale is fitted with state-of-the-art technologies and innovations. And it's 100% made in France.
A level of power never seen on any other aircraft.
Every day, French pilots stretch the limits of this superstar of the skies. We'll be following one of the top guns of the Rafale. He'll take you right into the bowels of this war machine. And for the first time, you'll discover all of its inner secrets.
I'm extremely honored to fly it.
To discover this extraordinary plane, we head to Saint-Dizier in the east of France, an ultra-high security base to which the Air Force has allowed us unprecedented access. Here, 50 Rafales stand in line, protected inside their individual hangars. In all, the French Air Force deploys over 100 of them, spread across several regions in the world. Out on the tarmac, a constant ballet is performed. Every day, pilots carry out 30 or so training flights. Teams of mechanics take apart and clean the planes. On this base, around 2,000 people are on alert 24/7. This man is one of the top experts on the Rafale. His name, Jean-Guillaume Martinez, AKA Marty. He's been a fighter pilot for 18 years. Marty is now a Rafale demonstrator. He presents the plane at air shows all over the world.
Hi, hello.
Marty flies a Rafale several times a day. Training obliges.
We're currently in Saint-Dizier, where we have zones specifically for making approaches and training missions.
As a demonstrator, Marty is well known among specialists. That's why he's the only pilot we're allowed to film face uncovered.
We'll be flying over Strasbourg.
All the others must remain anonymous because a Rafale pilot is a potential terrorist target.
All elements are present and zero defects.
The Rafale that Marty will fly today costs almost 120 million euros.
Okay, locked in place.
At 15 meters long with a wingspan of 11 meters, the Rafale could just about fit onto a tennis court. Its lines and materials are the result of meticulous study. The aim? To make it as stealthy as possible to avoid being picked up by enemy radar.
It's offline, under security lockdown. No impacts on the radar hull.
All's okay, ready to fly.
A young trainee pilot is flying with Marty. Today, Marty will do an aerial combat simulation. A chance to test all of the Rafale's detection systems. Behind, another Rafale will play the role of the enemy.
It has a thrust of 16 tons. It takes off after only 400 meters. You break the sound barrier in under a minute. Climb to over 10,000 meters in under 2 minutes. It's a real rocket. You climb at an angle of 60 degrees plus, but with the reclining seat, you feel like you're flying flat. It's almost as if you're looking up at the stars.
The Rafale has a long history dating back to the early 1980s. Back then, France, West Germany, the United Kingdom, Italy, and Spain planned to build pan-European fighter aircraft. But military strategies proved them to be too divergent. So in 1985, the French government pulled out of the program to produce its own plane. Its design was entrusted to Dassault. The head of the Rafale program recalls the vision of Marcel Dassault.
He said, "This plane won't be European, it will be global."
In 1986, a demonstration plane, the Rafale A, was unveiled. Marcel Dassault's dream had become a reality. July 4th, 1986, signaled the hour of truth, the day of the first flight. The performances of the Rafale were immediately impressive. The plane reached 1,300 kilometers per hour. It was a success. The Rafale A was a prototype far ahead of its time. An extremely powerful twin engine. Its structure and components made it the most modern fighter aircraft in the world. In 1987, the Rafale program was officially launched. The French government decided to invest in the plane for the next 40 years.
The government has set a date for the deployment of the Rafale to the relevant industrialists and technicians in 1996.
From version to version, prototype to prototype, the Rafale was improved over the decades. In 2004, the French Navy's first Rafales entered service. In 2006, those of the French Air Force. 20 years of research involving the top engineers in France. Today, improvements are still being made to the Rafale to maintain its state-of-the-art technologies. Its electronics, its radars, and its weapons are constantly evolving. In the past, each type of aircraft was specialized in one form of combat. But the Rafale is a multi-role fighter.
We had planes for aerial superiority, planes for reconnaissance, planes for bombing raids, planes for strategic bombing, carrying missiles or nuclear arms. Think about it, 8 types of plane replaced by just one.
The Rafale was such an all-rounder that it would gradually replace all the other fighters in the French military. Empty, the Rafale weighs 11 tons, but it can carry up to 16 tons of bombs, missiles, or fuel, 1.5 times its own weight, a record for a fighter aircraft. It's a machine of extraordinary complexity. 25 kilometers of wiring, 30,000 high-precision parts, and countless electronic circuits. It can fly up to 20,000 meters of altitude. Its maximum speed is 2,130 kilometers per hour, almost twice the speed of sound. To design the Rafale, in 1981, Dassault developed a revolutionary computer-aided software suite called CATIA. In the Paris suburb of Saint-Cloud, Dassault aviation experts gathered to work on the digital mock-up of the plane. Jocelyn Caudel is one of the most experienced Dassault engineers.
This digital mock-up is the central database, the specifications reference shared by everyone inside the company.
This mock-up allows the plane to be virtually designed down to the nearest tenth of a millimeter. With it, the engineers of Dassault and its 500 industrial partners can work together simultaneously at distance. CATIA also anticipates each stage of manufacturing.
We can add into this digital mock-up virtual human mechanics who allow us to virtually grasp the electronic modules and wiring we see on screen. Then, we can perform maintenance simulations during the design phases.
The tool they developed is out of this world. It's now used to manufacture civil aircraft worldwide and automobiles everywhere. The best tool in the world is called CATIA. It was developed by Dassault for its planes, and now it's sold across the globe by Dassault Systems, a subsidiary of the Dassault Group, which continues to develop the tool.
CATIA doesn't stop there. The software not only allows engineers to design a plane down to the minutest detail, it's also used for the upstream planning of manufacturing plants, assembly chains, robotics, and on-site configuration. Everything is designed and simulated by CATIA. The Rafale's secret lies in its 100% virtual design, combined with amazingly meticulous work carried out by those known as its companions. One example. For the flight controls, the companions must assemble over 1,200 parts to the nearest micron.
The companions need to have a lot of know-how, because the small size of the parts makes their work very technical, and this can only be done by a human hand, which can position and adjust parts to the nearest millimeter. You need incredibly precise know-how to be able to assemble parts easily in the correct order.
Everything is assembled at the Dassault plant in Maverick near Bordeaux. The computer-designed parts made in a dozen other factories in France fit together perfectly. Each plane represents 2 years of labor. A total of 7,000 people work in France on the Rafale. Today, an average of 11 a year leave the Maverick plant. And by 2018, production should have tripled. There are 3 main versions. The Rafale B, a 2-seater for the French Air Force with pilot and navigator. The Rafale C, an identical model, but a single-seat fighter. And finally, the Rafale M for French naval aviation, ready for use on aircraft carriers. The Rafale M differs from the other 2 versions by its much heavier landing gear, which includes a tailhook that enables it to land and halt in under 400 meters. Something that other competing fighter aircraft cannot do. Marty's training exercise has begun. You have to get as close as possible to the enemy to destroy him. The shots are only virtual. But after the exercise, a debriefing will be able to determine which plane would have won the dogfight in a real situation. One of the main challenges of an air-to-air mission is to detect the enemy before he detects you. For this, the Rafale is equipped with 3 revolutionary technologies. Firstly, a multi-directional radar, which is unique in Europe. It's located in the nose. It's composed of hundreds of small transit receive modules, the exact number of which is top secret. It can detect up to 40 targets at the same time in a range of over 100 kilometers.
Par ces systèmes électroniques que nous sommes les seuls à maîtriser.
These electronic systems, for which only the French and the Americans have the technology, provide a radar that can not only sweep from one horizontal zone to another in an instant, but also sweep above and below as well, thanks to the activation of the small microsensors installed in the plane's nose.
Micro-éléments qui se trouvent installés sur la face avant du radar.
But using the radar makes the plane detectable. When in combat, you need stealth. For this, Dassault positioned an undetectable so-called passive sensor just in front of the cockpit, unlike on previous models.
Parmi les différents capteurs
Among the various radar sensors on the plane, one of them is very special. The little balls just in front of the cockpit near the nose.
Le poste de pilotage près du nez de l'avion.
It's a kind of optical camera which is extremely precise and allows you to see more clearly targets detected by the radar or by other planes.
Par le radar ou par d'autres capteurs de l'avion.
It's like a telescope with a zoom.
The third feature, specially dedicated to air-to-surface missions, is the reconnaissance pod. It's a massive digital camera fitted to the undercarriage. It weighs just over a ton. It can take photos at any speed with a precision of 10 centimeters. Today, it is used in all combat theaters of operations. Another key onboard technology is Spectra, an integrated defensive aid system. It's composed of this large module at the rear of the plane, which is connected to sensors placed all around the fuselage. Spectra can jam enemy radars and give a missile approach warning.
Il faut simplement comprendre qu'il crée une sorte de bulle.
Spectra creates a kind of protective shield around the plane. It can send decoy signals, jam and counter-jam radar signals, so that enemy sensors are incapable of detecting the plane.
En fait, ne perçoivent pas la présence de l'avion.
But Spectra does even more. If, in spite of jamming, an enemy missile gets close to a Rafale, Spectra can send out a decoy, an electromagnetic pulse from the rear of the plane which deroutes enemy missiles. As Saint-Dizier, the arms mechanics fit the Rafale with the various weapons it can carry.
Okay, locked in place.
It carries 7 main weapons.
All's okay.
The Mika air-to-air missile. It can be fired 50 kilometers from its target and self-correct its trajectory. The Meteor air-to-air missile. Still in the development phase, it will offer multi-shot capability from a distance of 100 kilometers. Laser or GPS-guided bombs, costing between 50,000 and 350,000 euros apiece. This is the main weapon used in raids against Islamic State. The Rafale can carry up to 6. For laser-guided bombs, the plane is fitted with this laser pod, which sets targets in its sights 10 kilometers away. And this huge storm shadow, costing almost 800,000 euros apiece.
It's an air-launched, long-range fire-and-forget cruise missile. The pilot simply fires the missile and it goes straight to the target and hits it.
The Rafale also carries a Giat 30 revolver cannon on its undercarriage. It's one of the most effective in the world.
As its name suggests, it has 30mm shells fired at 2,500 rounds per minute, with a muzzle velocity of 1,055 meters per second. It's ultra-effective and is used both in air-to-air close combat and air-to-surface operations.
And finally, the Exoset for the naval Rafale. a huge missile fitted with its own rocket motor. Its explosive charge can sink a ship from over 70 kilometers away. The Rafale is the only fighter aircraft capable of carrying all these weapons at the same time.
The basic quality of the Rafale is that from the outset, it was designed to be a truly polyvalent aircraft.
The Rafale is a plane designed to enter first into a theater of operations where there are serious threats from the ground. Threats such as anti-air missiles, for example, or from enemy planes present in the aerial zone.
It can switch from an aerial defense mission to an air-to-surface mission at the push of a button.
And
this is due to the extremely flexible armament system.
This so-called multi-role plane can therefore replace all specialized aircraft. By 2030, it should be the only fighter aircraft used by French forces.
Today, the Rafale has the capacity to carry out all French Air Force missions. This airbase is a genuine combat tool. Every day, this base deploys men, women, and weapon systems that could be ordered into action on any day, at any moment, on any territory.
Fighter pilots train every day for warfare. The day it comes, you have to be prepared.
Our planes left the Saint-Dizier base fully armed to carry out raids on the request of the French president and overseen by military HQ on the first days of the interventions in Libya and in Mali.
The Rafale is also the only fighter aircraft of its generation to be recognized as fully combat-proven.
The pilot barely has any decisions to make. He's the armed right hand of the commander who gives the orders.
Another strong point of the Rafale is its ability to carry out very long-range missions. During the French intervention in Mali, certain flights broke every record.
I carried out one mission of over 10.5 hours, which required 6 in-flight refuelings.
With the small probe located just in front of the cockpit, the pilot can link up with a tanker aircraft and fill up the Rafale's fuel tanks.
We basically have an autonomy of 60 to 90 minutes. So if we go on a long-range mission, we need backup from tanker aircraft. The operation needs a lot of concentration because in-flight refueling is a tricky task, especially in bad weather conditions. During refueling, you need to be very careful and flexible. You mustn't get agitated, because with the electronic commands, the plane is very quick to react. So if there's a lot of turbulence, you need to be patient to avoid breaking the valve that lets the fuel into the plane. If you break that, your mission's over.
The Rafale can hold up to 5.5 tons of fuel. But it can carry over 7 tons of backup fuel in its 2,000-liter external tanks, or in 1,200-liter tanks so as to attain supersonic speeds.
It can consume over 5 tons of fuel in just 10 minutes.
The refueling is complete. The plane can continue its mission. Without refueling, the Rafale would be incapable of carrying out missions from France to any territory. The Rafale is at the heart of the French defense system. It's capable of performing all kinds of missions. One of them is particularly sensitive: nuclear deterrence. The Rafale can carry nuclear weapons. Colonel Sébastien Michel, commander of the Saint-Dizier base and former Rafale pilot, is in direct contact with the highest authorities of the state and the military. Rafale and nuclear isn't a talking point.
Since 2010, the Rafale has had a role in French airborne nuclear deterrence, notably in the defense of vital national interests. I can't say any more for reasons of secrecy and security, as I'm sure you'll understand.
We have been told that it is absolutely forbidden to film the zone where the Air Force remains on alert for nuclear missions. Only a handful of Rafale pilots have access to it and are trained to carry out such a special mission. The zone is patrolled 24/7, 365 days a year. This morning, Marty's 90-minute training mission is nearing its end. He's about to carry out one of the most sensitive parts of a flight, the landing. The Rafale has particular aerodynamics. One of the characteristics are these canards, small forewings on either side of the plane. They regulate airflow above and below the wings. They keep the plane in a constant state of balance. That's the secret behind the Rafale's maneuverability. They ensure that the pilot always maintains his trajectory.
This might surprise you, but the canards aren't controlled by the pilot. Depending on the extreme nature of the maneuvers requested by the pilot, the onboard computers automatically adjust all of the aircraft's features, including the canards, to provide maximum maneuverability.
These same canards also act as aerodynamic brakes when landing on an aircraft carrier.
Today, the naval Rafale is the plane that has the lowest landing speed in the world.
The canard forewings slow down the plane considerably on landing. It comes to a halt when its tailhook connects with the cables slung across the deck.
The Rafale was designed to land on aircraft carriers, but also for use by the Air Force on land runways. So the military needed a plane that could slow down as much as possible to land on an aircraft carrier and not come in at high speeds on the sea.
The Rafale's DNA is the mixture of the synergy between the ultra-disciplined design process and the extreme skills of the companions at the Dassault plant. The best example of this is in the manufacturing of the wings.
The Martignas factory manufactures the airfoils, a process which is both mechanical and composite. The parts are then sent to the neighboring Mérignac factory, where they are assembled onto the fuselages.
Some manufacturing steps are, of course, carried out by robots. Others done completely by human hand. The finishing touches are worthy of a Rolls-Royce. The external panels are given a special coating. These are then placed onto the main structure. The companions of Dassault Aviation fix them screw by screw. A quality control expert will then check air tightness and water tightness by injecting a gas. The last step. A technician uses this small electronic eye to check that everything conforms to the blueprint produced by the computer. This laser inspects down to the nearest hundredth of a millimeter. Now all the elements of the wings have been assembled. On landing, Marty's Rafale comes in at only 200 kilometers per hour, very slow for a supersonic aircraft. The Rafale's halting distance is less than 450 meters. The runway man is in place. He'll guide Marty so he can park in the hangar to the nearest centimeter. The plane is wheel blocked. Marty switches off the engines in all safety, just like in a car. Marty heads straight to the building on the edge of the runway, where he will sign the register and inform of the slightest problem.
Hi. Hello.
Every Rafale training flight is monitored from the first to the last step.
Nothing special to report. Everything was in perfect working order.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Structural mechanics pamper the fuselage of each Rafale. To cut through the air at supersonic speeds, the plane's surface must be impeccable.
Its surface is essentially in composite materials. The whole of the front of the plane is in Kevlar, the rest in carbon fiber, very light and very resistant to the variations in load factor. We check all over for any damage caused during the flight. Then we touch things up with resin and paint. We give the plane what we refer to as a makeover.
The whole structure is closely examined.
This plane has just returned from the same mission as that one, but this one hit a bird, so it has a small dent. The most serious thing I've ever seen is a plane that came back with a hole right here, about this size. The structure had completely gone. You could see the plane's skeleton.
Outside of combat, one of the greatest dangers for a Rafale is a collision with a bird. Hence the presence of this man on the base. This falconer keeps a dozen birds of prey. Several times a day, he patrols the Rafale runways. Paradoxically, he uses an ancient technique to improve the safety of one of the most modern fighter aircraft in the world.
Okay to enter the runway. Thank you.
The aim? To scare off any birds near the runway.
The presence of birds may not seem very problematic, but when a fighter aircraft is flying at high speed, hitting a bird like a lapwing or a seagull, which weigh 200 to 250 grams, it's like several tons on impact. My Falcon Zelda has just chased off a crow from near the runway. She nearly caught it, but that isn't the main objective. It's to scare them enough to dissuade them from coming onto the base and presenting a risk to the Rafales.
The day draws to a close at Saint-Dizier. The 600 hectares of the base vanish into darkness. But the radars and security patrols keep working to watch over the 50 birds of steel. The next morning. Today, Marty will perform a different kind of Rafale mission. A flight in a simulator with a scenario dreamed up by this specialist, a trainer who will monitor the pilot's entire flight.
Okay, shall we start?
Yep.
Is the scenario ready?
Yep.
Okay, I'm going in.
On the Rafale simulator, flight conditions are replicated down to the slightest detail.
The cabin is exactly the same as in the plane. In terms of preparation, briefing, flight and debriefing, it's the equivalent of a real flight mission. In the simulator, you can do everything. If you have to drop a heavy load so the plane can accelerate more, you can do it.
The simulator therefore enables the virtual testing of weapons, each of which costs between 50,000 and €1,000,000. Considerable savings compared to real training exercises carried out on practice fields of battle. Another advantage of the simulator is the constant contact with Dassault engineers sitting opposite similar machines. This helps the constant improvements that need to be made to the plane. In the cockpit, the controls are identical to those inside a real Rafale. When the pilot presses a button, he gives an order. The onboard computer then chooses the best maneuver to carry it out.
All of the switches on the joystick allow you to communicate with the plane, to give an order, open fire, select targets, set off decoys, change lateral vision, and so on.
The joystick has dozens and dozens of buttons, so a Rafale pilot has to be a kind of pianist. With one click or one press, he controls all of the plane's functions without having to take his hands off of the joysticks. This makes the plane extremely maneuverable, extremely sharp, and extremely precise.
Another Rafale innovation. Older generation fighters had only one central joystick.
At first, you think it might be difficult to fly a plane with the joystick to your side. But after only 10 seconds in a Rafale cockpit, you realize it's totally natural. You even end up asking why the joystick used to be in the middle.
For over 2 hours, Marty will carry out an as-real mission in the simulator.
It's as mentally stressful as a real flight. But there are lots of things you can do in a simulator that you can't do on a training flight. Like firing your weapons and seeing the immediate results, because the simulated targets are hit for real. And at the end, we lost the right engine as we landed, which resulted in an ejection. But that's why the simulator is interesting, being able to do what you can't do in a real plane, because it would be too expensive to lose a plane every time out.
Of course, there are missions abroad, but the Rafale must also be ready to intervene at any time over mainland France. This is called COS, Constant Operational Standby.
Our planes are on standby to protect France and our fellow citizens. They can take off at very short notice to bring airborne assistance and ensure the sovereignty of mainland France.
At any instant, Rafales must be ready to take off from Saint-Dizier and other bases in France, like Istres or Mont-de-Marsan. Their mission? To aid aircraft in danger, or to intercept an unidentified plane. And all in a matter of minutes. Marty's day is far from over. This afternoon, he'll do a training session for the aerobatics he'll perform at air shows. He'll test the plane's performance levels at high speed and at high altitude. He kits himself out. First, his anti-G pants, which have air cells to cope with centrifugal force.
Basically, they inflate to limit the blood flow to the legs.
Marty then puts on his life jacket. It's very heavy, but vital for his safety.
It's equipped with a lifesaver in case we have to eject over the sea. And then my helmet.
Now kitted up, Marty will, like every day, take up his plane. He signs the register. Today, he'll be flying alone. Marty positions the Rafale on the runway. His plane is ready for takeoff. The afterburners, the two flames coming from the jet engines, are ignited. Inside the engines, the temperature is over 1,500 degrees Celsius. The afterburners are part of a turbo system which re-injects fuel as it exits the engines. Like on a space rocket, the gases catch light and give the engine a 50% boost. A Rafale's engines can be changed in just 1 hour. Ease of maintenance is one of the qualities that makes it stand out from its competitors. With the energy they use, the engines wear out quickly as that of a Formula One racing car. When the onboard computer requests it, the engines are taken to a workshop for a checkup. Marty has reached 10,000 meters of altitude. The aerobatics can begin with loops, rolls, and tight veering. The power of the Rafale is such that the pilot is literally crushed by centrifugal force. This force is measured in G's, G for gravitational. On the right of his screen, Marty sees the counter showing the rapidly increasing G-force. At 8 to 9 Gs, an inexperienced pilot could pass out.
At 9 Gs, you weigh 9 times your own weight. A pilot who hasn't been trained for it can begin passing out at 5 to 6 Gs. A trained fighter pilot can go up to 9 or 10 Gs. It won't go up.
Such accelerations generally cause so-called positive Gs. The blood descends from the head to the feet, so the brain loses its regular blood supply. A pilot can experience dizziness or even loss of sight.
The first missions are exhausting. We learn the techniques in the centrifuge to cope with the changes in load factor.
When the plane dives, it's the opposite. The blood rises to the head. This is called negative Gs. These are even more dangerous than positive Gs. The pilot risks lesions in the eyes or even in the brain. To limit this pressure, there are of course the anti-G pants. But that's not all. Dassault had the bright idea of giving the Rafale reclining seats to lessen the effect of centrifugal force. With the body more reclined, blood flows less rapidly from head to feet and vice versa. The Rafale's glass cockpit is very specific. It was designed to give the pilot maximum visibility ahead and to the sides. Another crucial feature is the ejector seat, a pyrotechnical system which prepares the pilot's ejection.
Le centre de Poitiers est un centre de production.
The center of Poitiers designs and makes the glass cockpits, along with all the pyrotechnical systems, which are basically explosive systems that weaken the glass so that the pilot can eject from the cockpit.
We have sleeves that bring the arms towards you. If you have to eject, your arms are automatically dragged to the buckle area so you don't split in two during a high-speed ejection.
Marty's practice session is over. He's reaching the runway. The Rafale has to rival its many competitors. So a strong display is needed at this air show just outside Moscow. The main competitor is the Eurofighter Typhoon, the pan-European fighter designed at the same time as the Rafale. It's faster, but more expensive and less multi-role. For example, it is unable to land on an aircraft carrier.
The Typhoon, which is built at similar cost to that of the Rafale, is yet to display true polyvalence. So the countries that own them are obliged to own several types of aircraft.
Other competitors are new planes, like the MiG-35 and the Sukhoi Su-35. The plane we see here at this meeting is a MiG-35. It's a twin engine. Its perpendicular fins make it very fast and very agile. The Russians have many strong points, but experts are yet to trust their technologies.
Combat electronics are still a little less sophisticated than those found on European and American fighters, although they have made considerable progress.
What's more, the new MiG-35 won't enter into full service until 2016.
The problem is that the Russian industrial setup is unable to produce the plane in large quantities or guarantee total reliability.
And finally, the American F-35, a latest generation fighter aircraft. But its development went way beyond deadline, and its cost is astronomical, and is still not combat proven.
Rivals are finding it very difficult to compete with the Rafale.
For 15 years, Rafale sales didn't take off. But since early 2015, contracts are flowing in. Egypt and Qatar have each ordered 24 aircraft, while India has signed up for 36.
France has been blessed with a plane that has become the spearhead of the French military in terms of power, and which is now finding customers for export.
Exports which are directly linked to international tensions. Conflicts are increasing the sales of the Rafale, the only plane of its generation to have proven itself in live combat. So yes, the Rafale program has cost the French state a lot of money, almost 50 billion euros, a colossal amount. But the potential profits are even more colossal.
When you think that France has preserved its armaments industry, including radars, engines, missiles, electronic systems, fighter aircraft controls, I'd say that in the end, the Rafale is cheap.
The success of the Rafale comes as no surprise. A system of latest generation radars, weapons for all types of mission, exceptional aerodynamics. In all, over 30 years of research and development by the whole aeronautical sector in the French military. It's very unlikely that in the coming years France will invest in a new fighter aircraft because the Rafale will evolve and be improved even more. Its military career has only just begun.
Rafale's shelf life will be about 75 years, and that's massive.
Until 2050 and perhaps beyond, the Rafale will remain the fighter aircraft of France and a number of other countries. Already a mythical plane and already the holder of numerous world records. But the Rafale is also an amazing human adventure.
I think we can speak of a Rafale community.
A constant partnership between designers, engineers, politicians, and the military. An era which has marked minds.
My greatest memory is probably my first ever flight on a Rafale. A real discovery, a totally different world.
I must admit to feeling very proud of having worked on a project that has elevated both France and Europe.
It made me realize the quality of the engineers we have in France for having produced so much technology, for having grouped together every task of the Air Force in one single machine.